A huge non-optimized image can really slow your web page load time, and that's not a good thing. This video will cover some tips, tricks, and techniques on optimizing the images on your WordPress site. Ideally, you should optimize your images before uploading them to your WordPress site, but if you have an existing site with a whole bunch of images, it's not too late to optimize those images as well. First, I want to cover how to optimize the images off-site before you actually add them to your media section. Then we're going to see just how easy it is to optimize your site's current images. Now, when optimizing images, there are two things to think about: the file size and the image dimensions. The file size can usually be reduced by an image editing program like Photoshop or any number of other online free tools like, for example, Dynamic Drive. You can just do a Google search for image optimizers like I've done here, and you'll see at the time of this recording anyway, there's a tad bit over 3 million results. So there's no shortage of image optimizers, most of which are going to be free. Let me demonstrate the use of one of these, this guy right here, the Dynamic Drive Image Optimizer, by heading over to dynamicdrive.com. You can see they got a ton of tools here. The one we're going to be looking at is this guy right here, Image Optimizer. Let's click on that. And you have a limit of 2.86 megabytes in file size, which, by the way, is a huge image. The one I'm going to be demonstrating is about 1.5 meg, so it's still pretty fat. As a matter of fact, that's this guy right here. And this guy right here is about 3,000 pixels wide, and it's being scrunched down to about 600 pixels wide through the use of WordPress. So you're really taxing the use of WordPress and your visitor's browser if you do something like this, like a lot of people do. They'll upload a huge image into their WordPress media section, and then knowing that WordPress can scrunch it all down for them, they'll leave it at that. Well, it still has to load that full 3,000 pixel width image into your visitor's browser before it scrunches it down. So again, it's adding that extra load time, using a ton of bandwidth. That's just a total waste. So let's go ahead and use this free tool to knock the file size down. We'll tackle the dimensions here in just a second. But you can either use the URL of the image or just select it from your computer, and that's what I'm going to do here. And that's the one that's on my post, but this is the one I'm going to go ahead and scrunch down, because this one's 1.5 meg. And this one here, as I hover over it, you'll see it's about 2.69 megabytes, and that's pushing it as far as the limit that Dynamic Drive will take. So just to be on the safe side, we'll take this guy here. Just select, open, and right here, I want to leave it as the same input type, but I want to show all results. Click on Optimize, and depending upon the size of the image will depend on how long it takes to actually finish this, but through the magic of video editing, this won't take very long at all. And here we go. And as it's shown here, the original, that's this guy right at the top, is 1.4 megabytes. Yeah, let's round up, 1.5 megabytes. And if we come on down to the next image that it's scrunched down by 25%, you really can't tell much of the difference between the two, except this one here, your browser is going to be pretty happy because it's been reduced by 25%. Let's go ahead and scroll on down even further. And frankly, this looks pretty crisp, and this one is 307 kilobytes, a reduction of 79%. Your browser is going to be ecstatic, and frankly, this is still pretty darn detailed. So depending upon the actual end quality you're looking for in your posted images, like if you're not a photography blog, then something like this, or even scrolling on down further, 89%. Yeah, that's getting a little pixelated, so that's a little bit too much for my taste. But this one here might do just fine, and that is 244K, a reduction of 84%. So anyway, you can see that with this free online tool, you've got a host of different ranges that you can work with that will reduce your file size immensely. And not only are you reducing the load time, but also you're saving a ton of bandwidth, which in some cases can equate to a savings of money at the end of each month. Okay, so that's the file size. As far as the actual image dimensions, it really should not be left up to WordPress to do the reduction for you if you can do it off-site, and you can. For example, right here, depending upon your theme, the maximum width of your content area may be somewhere between 600 pixels, which is about the case with this one, to maybe 900, even 1,000 pixels in width if you're not using a sidebar. So having an image 3,000 pixels wide is just a waste. because again, the entire image, the entire original image has to be loaded into your visitor's browser before WordPress can go to work at reducing it to the size that will fit into the content area of that particular theme. So reduce the size before you actually upload it. That's the offsite stuff. Now, if you've already got a whole bunch of these images on your site and you don't want to go to the trouble of logging on to an FTP client, downloading all these images, doing the file reduction and the dimension reduction offsite, and then re-uploading them, overwriting those files that are on your server already, which would be the case. And if you only have a few images, then that would be an ideal situation. But if that's something that's just not doable for you because you just have so many images, then what you can do is try a plugin that will do a lot of that work for you. Two of them that I'm going to suggest. One of them is WP Smush It. Got to be careful how I pronounce that. And another one is Imsanity. That's I-M Sanity, not Insanity. Both of these, once installed and activated on your WordPress site, will do a bulk reduction of file size and dimensions, which will take a lot of that stress off your visitor's browser when trying to load that huge image that you already have on your site. But where these might only reduce the overall size, both file and dimensions, by maybe 6 or 7 or maybe even 8%. Remember, with the dynamic drive, these guys are doing it upwards of 79 to 85%. So again, ideally, the best way is the offsite and then upload to your site. But if that's just not an option for you, then let's head on over to plugins. I'll demonstrate the use of this guy right here, WP Smush It. Now, they both do the same thing as far as bulk reduction, but with WP Smush It, it does have a limit of 1 megabyte. So if you have a lot of images that are in excess of 1 megabyte, then you might want to try Imsanity. Let's go ahead and install this guy right here by going to the dashboard of our WordPress site, come up to Plugins, go to Add New, type in here WP Smush It, click on Search Plugins, check out the details if you want to, or just click on Install Now. Click on OK, click on Activate, and here it is right here. Now you come on up here to the Media link, and right here you've got Bulk Smush It, or you can just come into the library if you want to do just 1 or 2 images by activating that plugin. Over here on the far right of each one of your images, you have a new option called Smush It. And if there's no savings, then it'll tell you right here. Or if you want to just try to smush it even further, then you have that option. And you can see here that these two are in excess of the limitation that Smush It has, so you're not able to use that. And by the way, WP Smush It is part of the Yahoo developer tool Smush It. So if you are familiar with using the Yahoo tool Smush It, then you're kind of familiar with how this works. Same process. But let's head on back over here to Bulk Smush It. Just click on that. Just read this stuff here. And by the way, it's a good idea before you do any of this stuff, whether you're using WP Smush It or Imsanity, that before you run the images through that plugin, you want to do a full backup of both your files and your database. That way, in case you're not happy with the end result after you do the reduction in file size and dimensions, then you can just nix the whole thing, reinstall things from your backup, and you're back to where you were before you installed the plugin. Let's go ahead and run all images through WP Smush It right now. Let's click that. And of course, depending upon how many images you have, will depend on how long this takes. And you can see here the reduction size in percentage-wise is nothing compared to that of the dynamic drive option, but still, every little bit helps. And that's an example of how you can do an on-site reduction versus the off-site reduction. But from this point on, you should always try to do the off-site reduction first before you upload the images to your site. That's going to bring us to the end of this video on optimizing images for your WordPress site. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.